Death is not going to catch this cat with 9 lives. Here's your look at the Mezco Toyz. This is the Living Dead doll's Catwoman. Selina Kyle slips through the grip of the Grim Reaper to become the newest addition to the Mezco Toyz Living Dead dolls line. The very first thing we're going to do to get this review underway is to measure off the very top of Selina Kyle's cowl. That'll give us the measurements, obviously things that you may need if you're looking to pick this one up and add it to your collection. So the figure, the Living Dead doll of Selina Kyle, stands 10.9 inches in height. And that, members of the mob, you don't mind to call you members of the mob, do you? Splendid. According to the tape measure for centimeters, then the figure stands 27.7 centimeters tall. She comes with one lone accessory, and that is her included whip. To the credit of Mezco Toyz, I'm glad that they actually gave you a pliable whip, something of which you could actually move. If they had sculpted it as a completely closed-shut piece of plastic, like something like this, I would cry foul. Passionate I am when it comes to Living Dead dolls, specifically Selina Kyle. I'm a big fan of Catwoman, so I'm glad the fact that they do actually give you a pliable whip. The whip, you can actually put in her hand, minus of course the sound effects of making the whip noises, and unfortunately it only fits into one hand. The other hand is designated for clawing, scratching, and otherwise just maiming the Cape Crusader. So really you only can put it in her one hand here. The hand initially I thought was wrapped in fabric, a continuation from her glove. But sure enough, it turns out that it's just all plastic. My eyes were playing tricks on me. Needless to say, though, you just pry the fingers away from one another. Try your best to get a wide enough grip, a wide enough opening in the grip, and then you just slide the whip in place. It's a pretty tight fit. Clearly, as you saw, it's a pretty tight fit, but one good thing is it stays in place. I mean, you could whip until the cows come home. Whipped cream, anybody? And at least the whip isn't, like I said, going to go anywhere. I don't know the material. It seems almost as if it's been done in fabric. I mean, feeling it, it feels like it's actually been woven fabric. Perhaps it is plastic, but it does definitely feel like it's got more of a material than an actual plastic. Anyways, the whip doesn't seem to have any other place. I thought at the back it could have gone, but that's simply just the Velcro closure for her belt. I suppose, if anything, you could tuck it in between the belts and the actual bodysuit that she's wearing as an option if you didn't want to display her with that. I kind of would have liked, I know Living Dead dolls don't tend to come with a whole bunch of accessories, but it would have been neat if she came with like a little feline, something again that could just kind of be, you know, posed around her leg, for example. The other accessory, I suppose, if you wanted to technically count it as an accessory, I didn't at the beginning of this review. If you wanted to, you can certainly do that if you want. She does have her goggles, which at the beginning of this review, I kept up. If you choose that you would like to have it down, however, you can simply slide that over top of her eyes. Perhaps a preferred look, if that is, you know, the way you like your Catwoman. One thing I will say, though, is if you are lifting up her goggles, you may want to just lift them out slightly, just leave a bit of a gap, and then bring them up this way. If you don't, I find a lot of times you just catch the cowl and you start pulling that back along the way. And you certainly don't want to be having that. By the way, you can lift up the cowl, but I mean, underneath it, there's no hair, there's nothing going on up there. So again, if you want to have the goggles up, I would just bring them out a little bit, just so that they miss catching the cowl, and just lift them up like that. Entirely speaking for myself, because I can't speak for you guys, the collecting viewing audience, but I kind of prefer the goggles being up. That's my preference. It does give you an opportunity to kind of get a gander at the emerald colored green eyes that they've painted onto her face. Really a stunning looking face that they've given her. She is slightly pale, which I guess could play into the fact that she's, after all, a Living Dead doll. Up to that point, you could simply just look at her and just think that she's a Catwoman doll, but there has to be something off on her. And I think, if anything, the off part of it seems to be the discoloration on her skin tone. It definitely seems like it's something not quite right to it, in a good way. The ruby-colored lips definitely kind of add on to the pale exterior of the plastic that they used for her. The material that they used for the cowl, and primarily all the body, is like this faux, kind of faux rubber, faux leather material. I can't tell you because I haven't traveled that far enough in time to know whether or not this will start flaking over the years, but certainly for the time being right now, everything seems to be good to go. They've seamed it all the way up, though not being completely attached. The cowl is a separate piece. Obviously, it makes sense that the cowl has to be a separate piece from the rest of the body, or articulation in the head might be something a little bit more problematic. But you can move her head quite easily. I don't want to cover her eyes. You're a pirate. But you can move the head up and down and all that good stuff. They've sewn in the seam lines for the ears, so those are a separate piece. I like the fact that it's also so tight that you can make out her ears underneath that. They simply could have just left the ears off entirely, and it would look a little jarring, wouldn't it? After all, how would Catwoman be able to hear? I know what you're thinking. She can hear up there. That's silly. That's ridiculous. That's part of her cowl. Like I said, the rest of the body, it's pretty much all a black body suit, all the way down to plastic boots. I was surprised for the fact of what little there is for her footing, that she actually is quite stable when you put her on a surface. She doesn't have any toppling issues like normal Catwoman would have when it comes to feet like this, or boots like this. Of course, she's got her cat emblem belt buckle, and she's got one long zipper that runs all the way down to here. I suppose you could unzip that if you wanted to. I don't really know why perverts you'd want to, but I guess the option is there if you so decide. The gloves are plastic, initially thinking that they were fabric. That was ridiculous. They are actually plastic on both sides, but actually quite seamless when you look at the fact that those are plastic gloves, how well they actually look like they're a continuation from her sleeve. So nice job adding that bit of sheen to the plastic. The only place that doesn't seem to have the sheen is the boots, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Again, like there's the Velcro closure if you want to take off the belt. I don't really know why you would want to take the belt off. They kind of give you one stopping point, kind of the point of no return in Back to the Future 3 on the train tracks, kind of telling you right there that this is slightly sewn. Slightly in the fact it seems only by one single line of threading, kind of telling you that you really don't need to pull this off. No, what are you doing? What are you doing? You don't need to take that off. If you want to fight it, I suppose you could. It ultimately may mean that you end up ripping the fabric off in the process, causing some damage to the back seam. So just leave it be. For the posability on her, her head moves up and down. It rocks back and forth. Quite the generous amount of posability, in fact. The arms hinge outward. They are limited, yes. If you are a collector like I am of the Living Dead dolls, you'll know really when it comes to articulation, a lot of these are quite very limited. The arms hinge out really only by about a 45-degree angle. They do rotate, or her hands rotate, but more so actually where the glove attaches to the rest of the forearm. The legs don't really give you much of a split. You can move them forward and back, not by much, and then she does have a swivel in the feet. That's it. That's all she's got. All around, not a bad-looking Living Dead doll. By this point of the game, when it certainly comes to franchised figures, characters taken from movies and not specifically horror genre characters, they're not quite Living Dead dolls anymore. When it's all said and done, basically what you're looking at here is a Catwoman doll. We could call it a collectible. We could call it a high-end premium figure if we wanted to. But at the end of the day, Catwoman is a doll. A Living Dead doll, but a doll nonetheless. And I'm still a big fan of these Living Dead dolls. Catwoman, I'm such a big fan of Catwoman that it seemed like a no-brainer to pick up the Living Dead doll version of Catwoman, and resulting in that, I'm very happy with what I'm looking at here. And hey, listen, I get it. I get it. Not everybody is going to be wanting to collect Living Dead dolls, but there is a market of collectors out there that source out the newest LDD, that's Living Dead dolls, offering from the folks over at Mezco Toyz. I'm not somebody that has jumped completely into the game of collecting LDD dolls, or I guess LD dolls. Is that, do we remove the D because the D represents the dolls anyways? I don't know. All I know is, though, I don't collect every single one that comes out, but certainly when it comes to movie or character tie-ins to like comic books, like Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, knows not necessarily in comic books, but characters like Catwoman, yeah, why not? I'll pick those ones up, because again, I'm a big fan of Catwoman. Would I collect every single LDD doll, or LDD? No, I probably wouldn't. That would get too expensive, and the collection would fill out very, very quickly. I don't know if you've seen how many LDDs are out there, but there's a lot. And I probably wouldn't collect every single one of them, but as you've seen on this channel, there are a select amount that I do like picking up, and I do like putting on display. If you are a big fan of Living Dead dolls, let me know down below in the comments section and which ones you have in your collection. Perhaps, much like Funkos, you may not be inclined to pick up every single one of them, but if you're a big fan of Catwoman, like D Knight, for example, likes Catwoman statues and figures, why not? Probably would pick up this one and add this one to his collection. So let me know down below in the comments section which ones you actually have picked up. Always like reading your comments down below. By the way, you probably also didn't notice that the outlined shape for the clear window to see the figure inside is shaped like a cat. Haha, it's shaped like a cat. If you haven't had a chance yet, beelining it over to discussions of subscribing. If you haven't done so already, let's say you're new to this channel or a long-time viewer, never got around to it, why not this be the time that you decide, I'm going to make that big leap, take that big jump. And it's not that overly scary or risky, you're simply just pressing the subscribe button. But what does that give you? It gives you a world of video content coming to this channel up to the end of this year and continuing on into January 2020 and for the rest of eternity, or until I'm still living and still doing this. Either way, guys, as always, thanks for watching. Let me know down below, weigh in on your opinions of the Living Dead doll version of Catwoman, and I'll see you guys next time.